What's up everybody, it's Cory from Keen Ramps. We're here today at the Keen Ramps driveway where we film all our videos like this. Today we're going to talk about skating switch. So skating switch is something when you're first starting out you're probably not messing with. You're going to learn your ollies and your kick turns and rock and rolls on quarter pipes and skating mini ramps. You're going to grind curbs, you're going to learn board slides. Switch is going to be something that you're not even going to think about or touch for a while. But once you get a few tricks, and then depending on whether you're a street skater or a transition skater, like what you're leaning towards more, you might be doing more switch than others, especially in mini ramps, because you can go up and do a rock to fakie. Now you're riding switch, you have to figure out something to do, either like a fakie rock or a fakie smith or some type of stall. But I got into switch because when I was a teenager, I was jumping downstairs and skating handrails, and I'm a regular footer, so I was always rolling my left foot super bad. I think I broke it, I tore ligaments in it. So I kind of just had this year and some change of my left foot just not bending right. So I was like, all right, right foot works and I can at least pop off of the left. It was strong enough where I could pop, and as long as I didn't tweak it too much, I was able to skate. So that got me into skating switch, and I ended up really liking it and figuring out nollie. And then it's just, it's like a really gratifying way to learn new tricks, and it kind of just opens all these new doors. I love skating switch, and I just want to share any knowledge that I've gathered over the last 25 years or so in skating switch. So I guess the first thing that we should jump into is probably the switch ollie and the nollie. So with the switch ollie, one thing that's a little bit different, a lot of times when you're skating, you're gonna be popping right off of the tail here. You kind of like really favor the back when you snap it. On switch, I don't know why this is, but you kind of don't do that as much. You kind of have your foot a little further in from the edge of the tail, and you can still get just as good of a snap. And I think that's because your dominant foot that you're popping from is a little more responsive. So when you pop off on a switch ollie, you can kind of drag up a little harder with that dominant back foot, and then you kind of just have to lift your front foot, in my case my left foot, to bring the board up to your feet. So I've always kind of had an easier time like boning out switch ollies, because regular ollies, getting that like boned out where your foot is doing that is a little bit harder for some reason. But in switch, it sort of makes more sense. So you kind of see there where like my back foot just kind of does the ollie motion, but I'm going the opposite way. So that's kind of fun. I know some people do nollie before learning switch. So just get really comfortable with riding on your board. And for nollie, you're sort of doing this motion of like pushing in but then pulling back, right? Because if you're too nose heavy, you're just doing that. So it's kind of this act of pop and pull back. But yeah, just kind of play around with whether or not nollie feels better. For a lot of people it will, because you're still riding your regular stance forward, but then try switch. So with switch, a good rule of thumb is at first, kind of get comfortable riding fakie, because that's gonna be like an easier gateway into just learning riding your board backwards. The switch Mongo, as controversial as it is, it's kind of accepted. Mongo pushing, for those of you who are just starting out and don't know, is when you push with the front foot, right? So the reason we don't like Mongo is because it looks goofy, but then on top of that, it's kind of just not efficient, because when you're skating, now you're pushing, and then you're having to adjust your feet all over again. Whereas with a standard push, the back foot, you can kind of just set up a lot quicker and easier, and it just looks more natural. So the ergonomics of not pushing Mongo are more efficient for skating. But in switch, it's accepted for whatever reason. I am not a switch bongo pusher, so this feels kind of weird for me. I actually like just pushing regular, treating the board as if it goes both ways. With the boards that I get over the years, I really like finding boards where nose and tail are almost symmetrical. Chad Tim Tim is a really great switch skater, and Element used to make a board that was completely symmetrical, and a lot of other brands are doing it for switch skaters nowadays. If you want to look into some really solid switch skaters, Bob Burnquist is one that comes to mind. He flies over his Mega Ramp switch. He did the loop switch with a gap in it. Scapegoat, the Andre Sanders. No one really knows what stance he is. He does tranny one way and he does street the other. It's Nick Merlino, Switch Ollie del Toro. Oh, P-Rod, phenomenal switch skater. Jeremy Rogers was another big switch skater. He would always like switch feeble, switch Smith rails. Jack Olson, he's got like a good switchback south, switchback blunt on rails. And he actually says that those tricks are more comfortable compared to regular because it's like a switch blunt. You almost just go to like a nose slide, nose blunt, back to regular. So there's a lot of tricks like that, whether you're skating a handrail, a flat bar, a quarter pipe, where it's natural, it's gonna feel more natural to just slide out back to regular. So that's kind of the beauty of switch. I guess I should go a little deeper into the switch ollie itself. So you're gonna treat this just like you did when you learned how to ollie. You're gonna figure out that pop slide motion, and it's gonna feel really foreign at first. And so a lot of times when you're first learning how to ollie or switch ollie, the board is gonna wanna turn, right? You might go like that, land 90. If you're doing that, it's probably because your chest is a little too opened up. So when you're riding, you should kind of be looking down at the board, keeping your chest faced into the board, aka perpendicular with the edge of your board. Because once you open it up, you're always gonna follow where your chest is opened up to. When you're first kind of practicing this, you can sort of point where you want to go. That's something some skate instructors will tell kids, like you can almost like point where you want the nose of your board to go. So if I keep my arm here, that's gonna force my shoulders to stay straight with the board, and it should straighten out my ollie. So if I'm holding that there, it's just one less thing to think about when you're popping, dragging your foot, trying to get the board in the air to just keep it straight. Another big thing about switch is no matter how much you do it, it still kind of always feels a little bit foreign. It's a good idea to just practice riding. Like ride to the grocery store, ride to a friend's house, at the skate park. If you go on like a skate mission in like a downtown area, like skate switch for the day. Just get yourself comfortable with riding switch, because then you're gonna be able to react and recover better to sloppy ollies or sloppy switch tricks, whatever it might be. So just work on getting like a really good stride. The first several years that I skated switch, I always felt like I was still riding backwards. And again, that's kind of a shoulder thing. Like I was favoring, I'm regular footed, so I'm always gonna favor forward a little bit. My shoulders are a little more open this way. So I would end up doing the same thing switch. My shoulders are facing that same way and I'm almost riding the board backwards. So just keep that in mind, shoulders, where your body weight is, and then just correct it as best as you can, and then just work on that push. Something else that I've noticed from skating switch is you kind of ride a little bit wider stance. So when I ollie or kickflip or whatever I'm doing, usually my feet are a little closer together when I'm skating regular. So I ollie here. So from there, if you feel like you got switch ollies pretty down, you can work on switch 180s, switch pop shove it. That's usually kind of the order of progression. So play around with that. Like a lot of these tricks, you'll figure out anything with a 180 variation, you're landing back to regular. So yeah, the flip is gonna be harder, but then once you're catching and landing, you're riding away regular, which is nice. So I'll play around and do a handful of just switch tricks that you might want to try at home. We'll start with some pop shove-its and then we'll go to 180s. First try! Alright, and then just for an apples to apples, just want everyone to see how terrible my regular ones are. I have no idea what I'm doing. Switch skating quarter pipes, like I was saying, some of the tricks are easier switch. Like a switch blunt, if you're kind of playing around with nose blunts, or what's the one where you yank in here?
Dump truck.
Dump truck to get into transition. Switch blunt's easy because you just kind of go up, get light on your feet, click it in, pop back in. Switch feeble fakie, same thing. Like I can't feeble fakie, but if I go switch feeble fakie, I'm going back to regular. It's super easy. And then when you want to get into grinding, practice on something like a curb first. Maybe learn switch slappies and then figure out switch ollies onto curbs or switch ollies onto parking blocks. Start there. You'll kind of figure out the switch 50s, and you kind of play with the switch backs. Those took a little bit longer for me, just figuring out how to redistribute your body weight back. And then you can play around with switch crooks. And then the 5-0s, if you're a good nose grinder, you're probably gonna have a good switch 5-0. And then when you get to rails, rails are kind of nice because it's very ambidextrous. You know, board slide, lip slide, front board, back lip. The feeling of the slide feels very similar, switch or regular or nollie or fakie. Once you get the board on there, it's just a different pop in. So we'll hit the flat bar and play around with a few switch tricks on that, and then maybe the box as well. And we'll call it a day. And if you need any more information besides what we've given, I know some of it we just kind of barely touched the surface on. We could probably make a 20-minute video about how to switch flip. So if you're looking for tips and tricks on any particular switch or nollie tricks or anything on quarter pipes, mini ramps, let us know. Hit us in the comments. And yeah, happy switch skating.
This is gonna be cut up, but he hasn't missed anything yet.
Oh!
Every time I say that.
All right, gonna do the old leg turn here. Oh, gross. Kind of fell off, but to make, it's kind of just in and out.
Switch back lip.
Switch back lip. Yeah. Bad. I'll take it because it's back to back.